it would have in some circumstances, some would have said, Manisha, it should be flattering that the government does a backtrack after Times Now puts on a story in 2 hours, and it should be flattering for us as journalists that we got the government to respond. But for me personally, Manisha, it is of great concern that in addition to the 6 pending cases against Vasudeva, the Central Vigilance Commission also brought to the notice of the government a PIL filed before the Delhi High Court, seeking a CBI investigation into allegations of bribery in relation to buying British gas stakes of KG Basin. So there are 6 pending cases and an accusation of PIL on the issue of bribery, and the government, the Prime Minister, the Petroleum Minister still wanted to extend this man's tenure. This is beyond brazenness, Manisha. It's something else, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, yes, this is absolutely beyond brazenness. I'd just like to say 2 points here, that the appointments committee acting or a group of ministers acting, all of them act on the delegated powers of the Prime Minister. None of them actually substitute either the primus inter pares status of the Prime Minister or the issue of collective responsibility. So in all cases of misdeed, it is indeed the Prime Minister leading collectively the cabinet that becomes responsible, number one. The second big point is that the ONGC is not an ordinary PSU we are talking about. We are talking about a Fortune 500 listed company. We are talking of this country's most important geostrategic navigator in terms of a national asset. Do we realize that by its misdeeds, what the Congress has been doing with the ONGC, it's the decline of the Nehruvian era. For God's sake, the ONGC was a solid institutional demonstrator of the temper of scientific research. Its origins lay in the Department for Scientific Research and the Geological Survey of India.
Do you think this government cares about it?
When China is
Do you think this government even looks at it that way, Neerja? Do you think the government even looks at it that way? I mean, I don't think they care about the historical perspective. The Central Vigilance Commission's findings were known to the Petroleum Ministry on February 10th. In fact, I think, Neerja, the other person who should really tell us what he's up to nowadays is this gentleman, Mr. Narayan Swamy, who has been accused of all kinds of things while in the Department of Personnel and Training. The DOPT headed by the PMO took all this time to act. Narayan Swamy, PMO, they are all aware of this going on, isn't it, Neerja? It can't just be Moily. Different parts have to come together to carry out a scam like this.
That's true, because November last year the letter goes, February 10th, as you say, the CBC writes to the Oil Ministry saying that there are these complaints, what has been done, recommendation has not taken place of Mr. Vasudeva. Still, Oil Ministry refers 2 names. Mr. Saraf's name has been cleared by the CBC, and yet it still persists with referring Mr. Vasudeva's name to the ACC, which is headed by the Prime Minister. So, you know, the other thing I feel is I'm very glad this is coming out at this stage, because it is also a message to the government that's going to come in May 2014, not to mess around with these things, because there is a very vigilant public opinion, vigilant media that they will have to contend with. Of course, and it raises questions about the role and relevance of the CBC. If you're not going to listen to them at all, this happened in the case of the additional director's appointment to the CBI, where the CBC's recommendation was completely ignored.
You are right.
So, I mean, what kind of governance are we into?
Well, you are right. And it also explains why almost preemptively today every political party has a problem with the media. You know, because these kind of things, had they not come out in the media, the government would have moved on. Now, my question, I have 2 quick questions for Mr. Javedkar and TSR Subramaniam. I'll close with him. Mr. Javedkar, you have a CBI additional director who was appointed without the CBC's recommendation. I'm sorry, but I did not see the BJP go to town about that. And as far as issues regarding Petroleum Ministry are concerned, oh, no, 1 second. So you are not exactly fire and brimstone in questioning many things happening in the Petroleum Ministry. Why are you so soft on Moily? Something happening there?
No, we are not at all.
No, you are a little soft on the Petroleum Ministry issues. Is there some pressure on you?
No.
Some kind of pressure?
No.
Is there any corporate pressure on you?
Which is not right. No, absolutely not. The issue is very clear. This government, and let me tell you again, the Prime Minister, even in 2G, even in coal scam, where he was the coal minister, has proved again and again that he comes out with the recommendation from whatever the bosses, his bosses, and reads out in the meeting. Even Lokpal Appointment Committee, Sushma ji said very clearly that they were not ready to listen to anything, but they bring out the chithi, which was the final decision. If this is the way, if it is being remote controlled from somewhere else, and that is the, and he has accepted that.
Sir,
and therefore, this government has come under cloud.
No, but you haven't answered my question to the growing perception that the BJP is a little soft on petroleum ministry issues. You should be careful, sir. No, you should be careful because the media is going to ask you questions. Neerja is right.
Yeah.
We'll ask you questions too. Quickly, TSR Subramaniam and closing with Manisha. Same question here. The CVC also points out there is no recommendation of the Public Enterprise Selection Board. That also is bypassed.
Yeah.
So it's not just at one step, Mr. Subramaniam.
Also there is the TSB has recommended one clear person. Only if a new person is not recommended, you think of extension, number one. Number two, sadly, these large public sector undertakings and the ministers concerned, there's a strong nexus these days, which is the bane of the problem, number two.
Oh, yes.
Number three, read what the CVC said very carefully. He has opposed it.
Yeah.
He says, only if and when the cases are closed, please come to me for approval,
no,
which means I am not approving,
yeah.
which means the government has gone against CVC's advice.
Yeah.
And lastly, it is, it is terrible to understand. A man having 6 inquiries normally should be suspended.
Well, I mean,
instead, you want him for an extension.
Even if you don't say that, even if you don't suspend, but to just to extend. Well, Manisha, what would be going through the Prime Minister's mind right now? Is he doing this under pressure, or do you think the Prime Minister's just gone into limbo mode? Do you think he's lost control of the government completely? I mean, what could explain this kind of situation?
I mean, that we've been, losing control of the government is one thing, but bleeding the public exchequer or doing things which are, close to that kind of an outcome, that's a specific charge that is being levied time and again at the doorstep of the PMO. So where does this leave the office of the Prime Minister? My concern here really is that a lot of the actions of this government will end at the doorsteps of the court and of vigilance and inquiry of the highest order.
I'm sure they will.
And therefore, decline of the office of the Prime Minister is what I'm worried about.
Well, I'm sure they will, and I think they should. I thank you very much, gentlemen. The UP appointment scam, by the way, is ladies and gentlemen, only something we are beginning to unravel. We have a lot more papers, and I think we will be able to put out a lot more in the coming few days. Thanks very much for joining me. Thank you.